My mom was a librarian, and I was really raised a lot by my grandparents, had a really, really deep relationship with my grandmother, who I think was really foundational in my understanding of femininity and of power and of strength and of resourcefulness. Had some really negative experiences with childcare, and it was really difficult for me to tell my mom about that because I just knew how hard she was trying. Balancing that between feeling not necessarily comfortable or safe like I fit in at school or pretty much anywhere else meant that the space that I had to create for myself really was a place in my imagination. I think that that absolutely saved my life. I was not one of those kids who had like a lot of friends who was hanging out in their neighborhood. I was that girl in her room by herself, like writing and reading all the time to find places where I could escape to, yeah, but also just places that I could be as big as I felt. Finally, we started to get tested. They were CAT tests to find out what our aptitude was. I tested across the board at 99s. I did eventually go to full-time gifted, and all of my friends were all really rich and wealthy, and going to have dinner at their houses, I would deal with their parents saying things that like, you know, immigrants are ruining our community, but except for you, you're one of the good ones. Or, do you speak English? Can you understand what I'm saying? Just people talking to me with complete and total disrespect. And so I would remember going home with them on the bus. I would ride all the way past my house and all my neighborhoods and ride the bus all the way back around just so I didn't have to get off where I got off and have them see that. I lied to them. I would tell them that like I went to camp in the summer and that my camp was $3,000, and I would make up names for what my camp was. And I remember one day one of the girls in my class just called me on it, and she was like, "You're lying and I know it." And I was crushed. I think it was just such a confirming moment that I would always be working to be like a model minority, like the very, very best example of a black girl in the entire world in order to be acceptable enough to be like let into their homes. I would be, doing my homework in the bathroom in the morning after not having slept all night long, or, coming from like hospital and forgetting that I have my hospital bracelet on still at school and like having to cut that off so no one sees it. I started writing a lot of poetry. At the beginning, really, a lot of it was about death. I wanted things to feel a little easy, like a little soft, a little bit of the pressure to be relieved in some places. And my teachers really just spoke to me to say, like, can you not do that anymore? I knew that I didn't want to give up. Even just, there were the small occasions where I would write something and it could just feel for a moment like that weight was lifted. It made it real because I wrote it down. There's a kind of validation that you get from being able to like pour your art and your expression out, even if you're the only person who is witnessing it at the moment. I remember one day in middle school where this guy in the hallway, he ran past me and he like reached his hand up my skirt and he touched my ass. And I went up to my principal, my vice principal, and I walked up into her office and I explained that this guy just came past me in the hallway and he touched me. And she looked at me with this very calm reservation and said, "From what I hear, you deserve it." Joanna. We pretty much loved each other immediately. She just started having me come over all the time, and we would sleep over all the time. And her family never treated me like I wasn't a person. And so I was there pretty much every single day. Her father invited me to come with the family to Poland. I'd never seen a place like that. And then we went to Auschwitz. And that shifted everything. Just understanding that literally an entire country participated, consenting in the genocide of another group of people that they'd been living with for like hundreds of years. I think I know that was the very first moment that really showed me that I could dedicate my entire life to working in communities and with people and with education to prevent and to stop violent, racialized things from happening to people. I really wanted to learn more. I also wanted to leave Toronto more than anything in the entire world, and really wanted to leave my home and leave the community of people that were around me and feel actually free. So I applied for school, and then when I got to school, it was really just about memorization and regurgitation, and I didn't want to be good at those things. I continually found myself frustrated with this institution that didn't want me to produce innovative knowledge. I had a teacher at the time, and I remember one day I just barged into his office. My professor told me that I shouldn't be in school, that I didn't need to be there, and that there's nothing that I need to be afraid of. I think he said that I was smart enough and hungry enough that I would find learning wherever I would go. And then I decided to drop out of school. I was really scared and I was really nervous. I called my mom up, and I hadn't spoken to her in years, pretty much since a pretty violent interaction that had happened in our home when I left. And I told her that I was gay and that I was dropping out of school and that I was going to move to California. In my heart, I had already reconciled that I didn't care what she said. I didn't care what anyone said, that I had to do this for me, that sometimes we all have to make unpopular decisions. I think the first question she asked me was, "Are you safe?" And then she said, "If that's your decision, then I support you." And so I moved to California. I really came back to kind of see my mom because I hadn't seen her in years, and I was hoping that we could try to build a relationship with each other again. I was also really starting to come to terms with kind of the legacy of abuse and that I had lived through. I saw that Buddies in Bad Times had a residency, and at the same time also To Be Young had just opened up Anita Africa Theatre in Toronto and was also having a residency program. What I started developing in both of these programs was my first one-woman play. It's about me talking about my lived experience of sexual violence and of being raped when I was 18 by my boyfriend at the time, and talking about kind of my coming of age and coming into my sexuality as like a queer woman, and thinking about how to reconcile all of those experiences and really challenge the idea that we as survivors are the ones who should be holding the shame. And I invited my mother to my first performance, and she came with a family friend. She sat in the front row, and for the first time in my life, she apologized. She acknowledged everything that happened, and she apologized for not supporting me and not being there for me. Those moments spent alone in my bedroom reading for hours are absolutely the moments that have kept me safe throughout my entire life. It's not about us trying to erase that to fit in and to all fake and pretend like we're all normal, because no one is. We're all freaks.